Welcome to the Red Flag Diaries, the podcast that shows you what's really going on, with your hosts Amanda Hart and Belinda Coleman.
Hello again, here we are for episode 2.
Yeah.
Today's topic is, what is a narcissist really? And the reason we're talking about this is because the word narcissism is been bandied about everywhere at the moment. And this isn't about labels or trying to diagnose anybody. This is about helping people recognise the patterns and the traits so that they can understand what's happening to them.
Yeah.
And so that they can trust themselves again. And we go right back to awareness is so important when it comes to a narcissist.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, so why is it, I asked myself the other day, is this word used everywhere at the moment? And why are people just calling, their partners, their bosses, even their neighbours narcissists?
Yeah.
Because it is not understood in the way it should be, of course. And then you've got social media, and it's like a trending word, and then everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Then you've got coaches using it without really understanding it, and also it's a label, and unfortunately it becomes fashionable to use, and therefore everybody starts using it without understanding it. So understanding behaviour is more important than the label itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so because at the end of the day, you risk misdiagnosing people, and also it can be offensive to, for example, if somebody is not in any way, shape or form a narcissist, but they may be selfish, or they may do something you don't like, and you just brand them a narcissist.
Yeah.
And it's actually can be quite insulting. So it's important that we understand today what it actually means. And also I think people really want to know, why is this happening to me? Am I going mad? Is it me? And also, why is it so difficult to leave somebody with all these little quirks in their personality, in their behaviour, that I don't actually like, I'm not enjoying? Why is it so difficult to leave, and how can I stop this from happening again?
Yeah, I mean, it does actually open a lot of questions, doesn't it?
Yes, and the statistics tell us that roughly 1 to 5% of the population have been clinically diagnosed with NPD, Narcissistic Personality Disorder.
Yeah.
And a further 15% of the population
Right.
exhibit narcissistic traits.
Is that 15?
15%.
Wow.
So NPD, that's approximately about 1 in 20 people
Yeah.
who've been clinically diagnosed with NPD.
Wow. That's a big number,
That's
isn't
a big
it?
number,
Yeah.
100%. And interestingly, of that percentage, you're looking at around, there's more men that display narcissistic traits than women, but it's not a huge gap in that at all. I think some people just think it's men, but it's not at all. 30 to 35% women, 60 to 65% men.
Yeah, yeah. And you can understand that there, I mean, it's, as I say, it's astonishing, that number, but it is a fact. It's and it's rife in society, isn't it?
Absolutely. As I said, it's trending, and people use it willy-nilly. An expert, as it happens, Dr. Ramani Duvasala explains it well. And when I was doing my research, I bought her book actually because I wanted to know more about narcissism, of course.
Yeah.
She describes it as the leaky bucket, and I loved her analogy of it. And what she says is that narcissism is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom.
Right.
No matter how much you fill that bucket up with love and care and and attention, and no matter what you give that person, that you can never fill that bucket up.
That's a brilliant analogy, because actually, because that's what we all go through when we're in a relationship that's narcissistic. And actually looking at the bucket, we are just keep throwing more and more and more,
trying
hoping
to hope
plug that hole.
Yeah, everything you do, this might be the right thing to say and to do, and then you end up changing yourself to still try and please that person, and nothing seems to work. And that's I did love that analogy.
We'll have to add that. So you've read the book, have you?
I've read part of the book. Very interesting, but she is the leading expert on narcissism and dynamics in toxic relationships.
Right, so we'll add that in the description, a link for people.
Yeah,
that's
very
interesting.
Good. Book is called It's Not You.
Brilliant. Okay.
Very, very. If you think about the title, It's Not You.
Yeah, I'd love to read that myself. So that's one on the list.
It really is not you. So, why is narcissism sometimes difficult to identify, and why do people have so much of a problem of knowing, not knowing what a narcissist really is, as to just thinking, well, they must be a narcissist because.
I think now looking back, I think in all honesty, I've met people who have behaved badly. Mm-hmm. But it didn't have a long-term impact on me because it was sporadic, or it happened around certain situations. But I definitely think that narcissism is detected when you start changing yourself as a person, and you start bending to try to pacify, as I term it. It's appeasing the beast. You shrink, you become compliant, you change the way you speak, the way you communicate, everything, your mannerisms change. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think then, if you can see that over time, that's when you've got to question, am I in a relationship where this person is a narcissist?
Yeah, of course. So, Amanda, you've been talking publicly about narcissistic abuse since your memoir was first published in 2015. What first made you realise this was something people needed to understand?
Well, in all honesty, when I first wrote this, it was in a desperate need to. I'd just gone through bankruptcy, through ill health, and I had started writing this book as a memoir for my children. However, when I'd gone through this experience, I realised that actually the trigger point wasn't actually in a relationship. It was actually a woman I'd employed who used narcissism, which was I guess you would call it the domino effect, which had an impact on my business, both my businesses, and then that spread out and then affected my health and my family and my community. It had such a ripple effect, and I think there was a real feeling in me then that I'm going to do this. I'm going to speak publicly about it. I've been invited to write this book back in 2008 when I was working at the radio station. But back then I had no reason to want to share my story. But at that stage I was angered because this had affected and had an impact on the people I loved. And then I recognised that actually that had occurred in several relationships, and I was seeing it in how people were coming at it presenting it to me in other relationships. And I thought, this is not just about partnerships, this is also with men and women, and in society per se.
In your family, yeah, exactly that. So rather than asking the question, is this person a narcissist, what question do you think people should be asking themselves?
I think it's definitely how is this person's behaviour affecting me? And I think that's the telling sign. If you change as a person, I think I've just explained that really, but I think it's as soon as you recognise that you're no longer the person that you used to know, where you feel you've lost your power, where it's actually having a greater impact on your health and well-being. And especially for me, I recognised that this was having an impact on my children as well. When I was in a relationship at that time, I that's when you have to start saying, I've got to take some ownership for this and responsibility, and look at the common denominator here. It's not who they are or why they're doing it, it's how you're making me feel, and for the greater good as well.
Yeah, good. And if it's impacting your children, I think that's when you have to really take stock of what's going on around you in your environment, because that then just ripples out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into your family, of course.
Sure.
So you've worked with many people recovering from these kinds of relationships. What patterns do you notice they almost all have in common? Because there are different types.
Yeah.
So, and which we're going to go on to in a minute. But what patterns do you recognise that they all have?
What in the clients, in the people that actually go through or do you think
in the narcissist?
In the narcissist, it's all. I think the common denominator is fear. I think that's the common thread, that they are fearful of actually changing the dynamic because of for whatever reason, whether that's financial, whether they've got vulnerable people in the situation, whether it's how are people going to view me if I leave this because I might have to leave my job. It all boils down to fear. And the thing is, fear is one of the greatest debilitators, but fear of the unknown is actually the worst level of fear. And it's, what do I do after this? What's the impact of this after? How do I know that person's not going to hurt me, harm me, blackmail me, whatever? So I think that's the thing. It is fear, but then the most common, I think, is fear of the unknown.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why people don't leave in general, as as well as when they're partnered with a narcissist.
Yeah.
So, because it's not obvious when you go into a relationship that this person is a narcissist, because there are no real obvious signs in the beginning, people often say, how did I not see this? So why can these behaviours be so difficult to detect in the very beginning of a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I always went for the charming, charismatic, really entertaining, and they're now I look back and I realise that they were chameleons, but it's all of that, how everybody else is observing them. Oh, he's great. He's great with the kids. He's great with the communities. Helps around the house. All that sort of thing. You can't spot all that until you get to that one key thing where something happens and you think, oh, what is it that I've just seen there? But then you brush it off because there's this pattern that happens. You didn't like that, but then they easily come back again. They could bring you round, and we'll talk about it later on. But Pat Craven talks about this, the cycle of abuse. We then think, oh, they're fine again. They're fine. Yeah. Oh, great! Thank God for that. He's back.
And you almost wait for that person back.
Yeah.
The one that you actually like, that you get on with, that you admire. You want that person back. You don't want to see the defects. So you accept it as, right, he's back. Yeah,
and we change, and we keep on, we're pulling that out because we then adapt to that and think, right, if I can just do anything I can to appease that person to get them back up there, and they love that because that's part of the game.
So your own behaviour changes to appease that person, to make it okay, to not rock the boat.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you don't want to see that again. Well, actually, I think you also don't. Maybe you think, was I mistaken? Yeah. As well. Could I have been wrong?
Absolutely, because we second guess ourselves, don't we?
Of course. So I think you've pretty much answered this, but people often describe those types of relationships as magical in the beginning. So it makes you wonder, do they know what they're doing?
Yes, I definitely think they well, yes, because it's so well orchestrated. It's they almost know how to give you whatever you need to make sure that you're hooked, So it's, I mean, they're great salespeople. They know how to sweep you off your feet, say the right thing, make you feel special. You're the one. Oh my gosh, I've never had anyone like this before. And you tell your friends.
Almost like a form of grooming in a way.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is grooming. I mean, it's, and I've had quite extreme situations with that, but yeah, absolutely. They know how to. It's almost like they've got your dossier here, and they go, "Oh yeah, right, okay. If I tick that box, that box, that box," and you think, "Oh my God, how can this person be so perfect?" But they've just read you, because empaths, when you're a good person, you're open. You tend to be able to show.
Yeah, of course.
We show everything of ourselves, and that also shows our vulnerabilities. So they know how to manipulate that as well.
And quite often it's not the first time they've done it, so they know the tricks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what do you think people misunderstand about narcissism and coercive control? What do you think people don't see?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that they may misunderstand about narcissism is that if someone's behaving badly, then they're automatically a narcissist. That's not, and also because people very, very quickly say, you can't do that, you're being a narcissist. People now feel that they can't actually be angry and be outspoken and stand up for themselves. So people can use it, manipulators can use it as a buzzword to actually put you in your place, and that's dangerous. But the coercion, the coercive control part, people misconstrue that because they think it's somebody who's manipulated. But coercive control can be very, very carefully
subtle.
Yeah, very subtle, and it can be just little things like, really, do you think you should be wearing that, or oh, I don't know why that's, that person's your friend, Amanda. It's she doesn't do you any favors. Yeah, and it's over time, and you start questioning it, and you adapt to that. And over time, you've adapted completely. They've transformed your whole way of looking at yourself.
Well, they take away who you are as a person, your authentic identity.
Yeah.
To manipulate you into what they want, of course, and then lock you in that gilded cage, and all of a sudden you're stuck, you're trapped.
Yeah.
And you're wondering what on earth, how it happened, and it's really a slow.
It is a slow burn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So looking back on your own experience, what do you wished someone else had explained to you about this earlier? If somebody had come along and sort of recognised what you were going through, what do you wish they'd said to you?
I definitely wish they had explained to me about the different traits of somebody displaying narcissism, so that I could understand that's wrong, that's bad behaviour, that's a red flag, so that I could have spotted it sooner. Yeah. I definitely, I mean, the information I now know, if I had known that 36 years ago, I would have had a completely different life. But we weren't privy to that information then.
No, of course not. And then we spend years trying to fix it, put it right, change ourselves, turn ourselves inside out, hang from the chandelier, hoping that something's going to change. But of course, not if you're not aware of what's going on, what's really going on, then you're pretty much flailing around in the dark.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult part about it, and that's why we're here, of course. Yeah. So and where do you believe healing really begins? For example, you know deep down in your heart, that their behaviour is wrong, and it's hurting you, and it's causing you anxiety and tension and hurt and pain. You know this, so actually it's time to call it a day, and pray to God you get away from that person. Where does the healing begin?
Well, I always thought it began when you've left the relationship, but I remember specifically I had a real eat pray moment where I was sleeping most of the time in the spare bedroom with a previous partner, and it was about 3:30 in the morning, and I was in tears, sitting on the edge of my bed thinking I can't do this anymore. And I made a pact with myself. It was the day before my birthday, and I made a pact with myself. This year I want peace. Now, I didn't know how that was going to come about because I just got married. I knew that I would have to find a way. I was fully aware. I realised that it was dangerous. I realised that I had to do something about it. But because of that, my subconscious just said, right, I'm ready to heal now. And it was a very slow burn. Yeah. And it took me some time before I came out of it. I mean, it was still nearly 2 years before I managed to get out of that. And that was the second time I left that relationship. But I did start the healing process there because I did a lot of self-discovery and a lot of work to find out why had I gone through this over and over and over again in different narcissistic relationships and was still doing it in my 50s.
And it's almost as if you were probably saying to yourself at that point, what's wrong with me?
Completely.
But there's nothing wrong with you.
No.
You know, coercive control is on them.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. You know, it's just knowing that you've been in these relationships over and over, what actually is going on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, you know, we're talking about, the patterns, obviously.
Yeah.
The patterns underneath the term narcissist, of
Yeah.
course. And perhaps a better question isn't how do we spot a narcissist, but what behaviours should we be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, it is the signs. I think once we start to become aware that there are repeated patterns, because that's what the cycle of abuse actually allows us to see. There is a thing that happens, and there is a way this person displays this behaviour. And if I see this over and over, then I should recognise that this is narcissistic behaviour.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I started to see. I put it down to, funny enough, football. Being very passionate about football. Not a drinker, but I recognised other patterns. Road rage was a big thing. Restaurants would trigger, bizarre things that I'd never seen in any other relationship before, but I dreaded going into a restaurant because I thought,
Extreme.
oh my God, it's going to kick off. Or getting in the car, oh my God, are we going to hit someone today? It was, these, and I braced for it. So I knew it was going to happen, but I felt I was powerless to do anything about it. And I didn't realise at that time that was part of the cycle of abuse. It kept me fearful, so that I was yearning for when we got to that place and he would be nice, or when the forgiveness would come in, or please, apologies, because it was, I was angry.
That's the cycle.
Yeah.
Like dump you from a great height and then suck you back in.
That's
and
it.
Give you a hug and then drop. It's that. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
An analogy that I found, which I enjoy. Sorry, it's not the right word. I don't particularly enjoy. I just like, when I read it, I thought this is a great way to sum up a narcissist, and that was the magician theory.
Okay.
So a magician, the spotlight's on the magician, the loudest person in the room, the charmer, the charismatic one, the one that's controlling the narrative, and everybody's looking at that person, and they're not paying any attention to the assistant that's disappearing inside the box.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that before.
Who's silent and who's losing their voice, and who can't be seen. They're not seen anymore. They're not heard anymore. And I think that's a really great way to explain a narcissist. And the problem with the word being so widely used now is that nobody's really talking about that person and what they're experiencing and how they're shrinking and how their world's affected by this. It's all about the narcissist. And in fact, when I did my research on narcissism, I popped it into Instagram, and I put narcissist, and there was about 7 entries, maybe more, and there was about 1 about the actual person behind the curtain sort of thing, and it's all about narcissism, and that's what we want to really talk about, is the person that's suffering. from narcissistic abuse.
I think that's a really valid thing, because we're not interested in poking fingers and saying it's because of you that we're suffering. We're not interested in that. This is what See-Through MPD is all about. Andrew Dixon's purpose for this was a signposting platform to help people who have gone through difficulty and want to heal. And honestly, if I'd had a platform like that, if I'd had this sort of information years ago, if I had access to that, or the awareness that we've got today, then I'd be in a very different situation, and so would a lot of people I know. But I think this is really valid to say that actually this is about the people as suffering this, and that's who we're trying to help.
And people watching this today may have been completely confused about what's going on, because they're not aware of the traits or the behaviours or the patterns of a narcissist. And now today we're presenting them with that awareness that all of a sudden it could change the direction of their life. And that's why it's so important to be talking about this, really.
Definitely.
So moving on, one of the biggest turning points for you was attending Pat Craven's programme.
And I'd heard someone say to me, "Oh yeah, you've got to do the Freedom Programme." Well, I mean, I didn't expect I'd be doing it in my 50s, but oh my gosh, it was an eye opener for me. And Pat Craven was an ex-probation officer, and she recognised. I mean, I've got it here. It was actually in 1996, so I remember that was that was what, 30 years ago. Former probation officer working with perpetrators of domestic abuse, and she realised she needed to teach women a way to understand the beliefs and tactics behind coercive control, rather than being told simply to leave the abusive relationship. That was back then, and look how many years it took before they actually changed the law to actually accommodate that. So what I thought was really interesting, because I realised that if that had helped me back then, my life would have been different. She talks about the different dominator characters and characteristics, and I thought this is really quite interesting, because I could see this in different relationships that I'd had, and some of them all were one person. So you've got, for instance, the controller, the one that wants things their own way. They make all the decisions for you. They use pressure, guilt, or intimidation. That's a classic one. The persuader, the one that's charming, he's convincing, you know you're right, but actually they convince you of another narrative, and they make you doubt your own judgment. And I think that's really, really dangerous when you start to question yourself.
Like gaslighting.
Absolutely,
in effect.
absolutely. Yeah. The persuader's it's a very devious controller. The head worker, when they twist facts. They make you see, you swear black is black, and they say, no, can't you see that's white? They almost rewrite history. Don't you remember that's what happened? And you think, I'm sure I could have sworn I said that. No, you didn't say anything of the kind. They create confusion. So the head worker really plays into the manipulation of keeping you locked into that relationship and doubting yourself. The other one, which is quite important, is the jailer, because they isolate you from friends and family. And I had that in numerous relationships, especially when it comes to you having vulnerable children, vulnerable people in the household, and pets as well. I mean, when we started this film project, there's a lot of incredible charities out there now who are offering programs or fostering programs to help rescue dogs. Because did you know that half the UK population have dogs? It's an incredible amount, but a lot of people won't leave a relationship because they don't know, they can't do anything with the dog, or the dog is abused. That's the vulnerable situation. That's the vulnerable thing.
Well, it becomes a pawn in the game.
Absolutely. I'll hurt the dog if you do this. Yeah. So the jailer isolates from family and friends, and they monitor your activities and restrict your freedom. I mean, that was something I didn't even know about until we had the police involved, and my car was tagged. I was being recorded in voice and camera. I had no idea. It's very cleverly done sometimes.
It's very fearful being in those situations as well. I once was years and years ago. wondering how on earth I'd ever got to this point in my life, because I was always very confident and happy-go-lucky, and then all of a sudden I met this guy, and it turned into an absolute, horror show, and it's exactly the control. I wasn't allowed to speak to friends, family, ripped up photographs of mine, all my photographs that I had. I had my own flat at the time, and
these were your modelling pictures as well, so they meant a lot to you.
Yeah, the fear of it, him coming in through the door and accusing me, the accusations, that was, that was tough when I hadn't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. It's very, very scary.
And it's so unexpected, because when they do it, they do it with such a, sometimes it can be so quick, and you're caught off guard, and you become very, you don't become responsive to it. You just freeze, because it's you don't know how to get out of that situation.
There's nothing you can do. Probably be quiet at that point, for me anyway.
Yeah.
And then you get I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again, I love you so much. And then that kind of like, you waiting for that moment for them to start the whole, the apology, because, that does hold you there for a certain time, doesn't it? Until you make a plan, a very, very discreet plan, a careful plan to, I don't like to use the term escape, but,
to make the exit
safely.
Absolutely.
Of course.
So the bully is a classic one. They use fear, which would have been definitely in this case with you, threats and intimidation, especially around, I guess, a lot of this is that real jealousy, and that can be quite dangerous, can't it?
It's
who are you speaking to?
It's on a completely another level,
of course,
to the normal sort of run-of-the-mill jealousy, if you want to call it that, or for want of a better expression. But that jealousy,
that's dangerous, isn't it?
It's malignant jealousy.
And there's also the sexual controller as well, because they use sex as power or punishment. And I remember being told, well, Amanda, this is how I show love. And I just thought, this is, and for years I bought that. I just thought that's okay, that's the way he is. And I accepted it. I didn't like it, and that can be a real that can be really demoralising for women, where you feel that it's such an intimate part of you, and when that is abused like that,
it doesn't feel it's good or nice or intimate. It feels quite horrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can imagine.
The king of the castle is, the charismatic one, isn't it? He believes they believe their needs come first, and they expect special treatment, and they've got an entitled attitude. I used to laugh at it. I've got to tell you a situation, and I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this, but my neighbours at one point realised that there was something not quite right. And we had, beautiful house with a long garden, boat at the end of the garden, and we used to all say behind his back, all the gear and no idea. So we had everything, we paddle boards, canoes, everything. Didn't use any of it, but this boat, it was too powerful for the river. And you're supposed to have boats facing one way, because if there's a surge of water, it can the boat will sink. And it was the wrong way round. And rather than him getting in the boat, taking it round the river and putting it and mooring it the right way, he wanted to do it with ropes. He just had an illness, and he wasn't strong enough, and I could hear him down the bottom of the garden screaming, Amanda, come and help me now. And the neighbours were sitting there watching, and he's holding this boat. The flow of the river is pulling this boat, and I went up to him and I said, there's the keys, why don't you just get in the boat? I'm not going to do that, because he'd started it because the neighbours could see he didn't want, it was a humiliation. And I just decided that day, I'm not going to help you. I said, no, you either get in the boat and you do it properly, because you're going to lose this boat. You can't hold a big boat against this tide. And I just threw the keys in the boat, and he had to jump in and go and move it. But that was a classic. It was he by that time he didn't even mind showing people that he had power and control over me. And I had got to that point where I'd had enough. I knew that it was a display of, well, I'm going to show you that I've got power and control over her, because you're not going to say anything because you're frightened of me as well. And that can be when you start thinking, I'm never going to be able to get out of this, because if everyone's frightened, who's going to help me?
Yeah, it's it is very scary.
There is a couple more. There's
just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. But the bad father is one. This is, when they use children as weapons and they undermine parenting. And then there's the promise maker. There's all the apologies. There's I'll make promise. I made this promise. I said I'll keep it, and they don't. And change never sustains. So it's it can highlight certain patterns of behaviour with narcissists to show you the classic dominator characteristic, which is really interesting. So Pat Craven's course is something that is offered by all domestic abuse charities. When you go to them, they will actually offer this as a free service, which is honestly, it's such an eye-opener. Yeah, absolutely.
Worth taking.
Yeah,
of course it is.
Yeah,
if it can help anybody.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Then, and you can get away and do it.
Yeah. And this is the thing, they do it while you're in the relationship, so they help you to see, so you become stronger, so you understand it, and you get all the resources from the domestic abuse charity as well. So it is, if you don't learn it, then how on earth are you going to understand how to avoid it in the future?
But I think, I was going to ask you, when you felt you were first, you think you first entered into those patterns of control and coercive behaviour, and can you think back to a time, because obviously it's patterns within us, of course, that tie us to this behaviour, that attract us to this behaviour, but that's for another time. But now, obviously that type of a character attracted you to them. But when did you first recognise that you were, you'd fallen foul to patterns of
I think it was I think it was definitely in my first relationship after my father had died. I mean, looking back, I realised that I was delivered to a coercively controlling and violent father, and going from a very loving background to suddenly being dumped on a doorstep with somebody I didn't even know. It completely disempowered me. But I just assume I've just chalked that up to a bad childhood. The first time I had an unhealthy relationship was actually after my father had died. And it wasn't, and this is interesting, it wasn't that my father had died, it was how another member of the family said, well, you didn't get on very well with your father anyway, so what you upset about? And because of that, I then went and sought a father figure. And that was my first coercive controlling relationship. And that was devastating for me because
it felt familiar to you.
It did. And then I continued to attract those relationships from then on.
Because, growing up, how you are taught to show love is what you feel is, normal. You normalise it because you don't know any different when you're younger,
No.
How you are shown love in every respect is how you learn to show love too in some respects, but also it's what you attract into your life, because then you think that too is normal. It's normal behaviour.
Yeah.
Therefore it's so difficult. It's very, very hard to actually work out what's going on, because we were never taught that in schools. We were never taught that by our parents. You had a parent that abandoned you, like yourself, or you had a parent that you had to really, you were a people pleaser, and you thought you had to really struggle to get their attention. Then that's going to create patterns within yourself.
Of course, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? But as I say, I hadn't actually thought about that first time until you actually asked that question. So, and I realised why it wasn't actually that I was defaulting to that naturally, because I'd had relationships up to that point and they were healthy. It was because of that one family member that triggered that brought back all of that from my relationship dynamic as a child. and then I suddenly reinforced that pattern, and then went on to a life of destruction after that. So it's interesting.
So when did you first realise that what you'd experienced had a name? Because I don't know about you, but I can't remember the word narcissism being used when I was at school, when I was growing up until about 10 years ago.
Yeah, I only because I was invited into the domestic abuse arena when my book was published, because it happened to coincide with the changing of the law, and that would really open my eyes to it with the but I still didn't really know anything. Even though that was over 11 years ago, I didn't know what I know today, and that was only because I have had to go through these programs, and I've gone through very specialist counselling, and I have done so much more research, and there is so much more available today. And I've been involved heavily in this industry now for such a long time, and the more I learn, the more it opens my eyes to it. And I think, well, if I've done all of this work up to now, what on earth do people do when they first start out with this? It's a minefield.
Or they don't go looking for something like this, because it's not something that they would do anyway.
No.
So they don't know it's out there.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but most things are online now, but there is a lot of misinformation online.
Of course there is, and you don't know where to start.
No,
it's like going down a rabbit hole, isn't it?
Of course there is. If there's one thing you wish someone had told you 30 years ago, what would it be?
Put yourself first. I think I always put other people first. So I think, I thought, if I make that person happy, I will be okay. Because I did that as a child. I tried to make the adults feel better so they would stop doing what they were doing to me. And I didn't realise I had a choice. So I think that's what I would definitely do.
So let's look at some of the red flags.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, love bombing is a big one that people do know about. I mean, you know what love bombing is, and I think we've all experienced it to some degree. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's potentially a narcissist, but it is unhealthy, and it's something that we need to be aware of.
It's still control.
Of course it is.
At the end of the
Absolutely.
day. Yeah.
It's a coercion, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Everything revolves around them. Well, it's because my work is here, or I've got to do this because my family are here. It becomes apparent after a while when you start to see the repeated patterns. Lack of accountability. That's a good one. When you say, look, you go to them with something and you say, look, I'm really concerned about this, but they won't take accountability for it, but you back down. Blame shifting. That's a big one. It makes us feel that we're at fault. The double standards. Again, it's a real classic. They say one thing and do something else, and you've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
The boundary violations. And that's because the more they violate those boundaries, the more weakened we are to them. Lack of empathy, I think that's a classic one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big one. I think it's up there, for sure. That you're looking for some kind of comfort or sympathy or affection, and it's just not there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like there's no part of that brain is going to register that, and it's. And I think that's when you doubt yourself, because you think, well, hang on, maybe I'm not getting it over enough. I'm not clear enough. I'm not saying it in the right way.
Well, it kind of makes you feel worthless.
Yeah.
Because then you go into that. Well, I'm obviously not worthy of having.
Yeah.
Having attention. Or what's wrong with me? It's that I'm not worthy, which is where that you start getting the erosion of the self-esteem.
Yeah.
And it's a downhill
spiral then,
isn't it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I have touched on the cycle of abuse, and Pat Craven talks about it really well, and I think we should put a link again into the underneath the video, because I think the people who understand this, I think people can actually do these programs, or they definitely read her book. But yeah, I'll put a link in as well, because I think this is really interesting to learn about these different characteristics. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And people stay stuck again because of hope and hoping it will get better, hoping they'll get back to the person they were, you know, a couple of weeks ago. And there's an awful lot of guilt, you know, because you get to the point where you believe everything's your fault, because that's what you've been told so many times, and the more somebody tells you something, the more you believe it to be true.
Yeah.
So there's that guilt, you know, and there's that side of them that comes and sort of like is very sorry for a short period of time. So you have the guilt that you don't want to upset anybody, you know. So, and then fear is huge, because again, it, you know, leaving somebody under those circumstances, you are genuinely worried about the repercussions.
Yes.
What's going to happen to me? I've been followed before, you know. I've been so scared when I was working years ago. He would follow me into the hotel I was working in. I'd come out after work and he'd be there, and he'd be following me in his car. That fear, I had made a decision by then to leave, but you don't really know. But the thing is, you can be protected from this, you know. But there is fear around it, for
Definitely.
sure. Financial concerns, and obviously children being, you know, the biggest form, especially if you've got children with that person. But and doubting yourself, you know, am I doing the right thing? Should I just stay with this person? Is it easier to stay? And also, you know, you want to see the good in people. If you're, you know, if you're an empath, you're kind, you know, you're smart. You want to see the good in someone, and you want to give them a chance. And that's the problem. Keep giving them chances, is telling them this behaviour is okay with you because you've stayed.
Yeah.
You know, it's like anything, any form of behaviour that they, you know, that you allow, is taken advantage of, because that's the control they eventually have over you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'd like to add something here too. It's often I say, I've got it here's the stories we tell ourselves, but actually it's the lies we tell ourselves. I think it's more.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's more
it's
to
more
the point.
poignant. Yeah, and that is, so you're in this relationship, you know things aren't quite right, and the one thing that and I've done it myself, I can fix him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a classic, isn't it?
It's classic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can make it right.
Yeah.
Or I can manage it. You know, and he'll change. You know, that's the thing. You genuinely believe something will change. The more you're trying to fix somebody and trying to like sort of put it right, you think you're going to get it. You're going to have the magic ingredient one day, and they're going to go, "Oh my God, you're right all the time. I've been an absolute so and so. I want to change for you." You know, so that's the stories we tell ourselves. He completes me.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And you're not half of anyone else.
Yeah.
You are whole. You are whole.
No other half.
There's no other half. Stop using that. Take those words off the table.
Yeah.
You are already complete. Nobody completes you.
Yeah.
And the other one is, if I try harder, he will see me.
Yeah.
You know, if I prove myself, if I prove my worth, he will see that I'm worthy of better, being treated better. And I'm guilty of that myself.
Yeah, here too.
And he'll eventually see things my way.
Yeah.
Okay. It's because of it's because of his past.
Yeah.
You know, and there is some truth in that, actually, but it's no excuse.
No.
It's no real, you know.
No.
Once he gets help, if he gets help, and I think so many people are guilty of this. And what you just said earlier, it came to mind. Once we're married.
Yes. Oh my God, that's what I.
Things will change. Once we're married, he'll never.
Yeah.
Oh, because I'll be his wife.
Yeah.
Or his, you know, her
The
husband.
chosen one.
Yeah, the chosen one. He chose me of all these women, and he's this charismatic person. But actually, I know there's all sorts of things going on. But once we're married, he will change.
Fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. You know. And the thing is, those stories keep us attached to potential and tethered to these toxic dynamics in relationships. And of course, once you've got the ring on your finger, it's difficult to then. It's not difficult to leave or to make that decision. What I'm saying is, it makes it harder.
Yeah, of course it does.
Of course, because you've got that commitment.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think, I mean, this is going on quite quite long, this, but we could talk about this forever, couldn't we, with this episode?
Well, yeah, of course. And I think it will pique people's interest, because most of my clients, most of the people I know, friends as well, have at some time been in some kind of narcissistic or coercive controlling relationship, and will relate to this.
I think there's something like, I think one of the statistics is 1 in 4 women will be abused at some point in their life. I think they say 1 in 6, but they don't think it's, and that's for men, but they don't think the statistics are right, because men don't often come forward and actually ask for help as much as women.
Well, you don't see it so much, do you?
No.
In documentaries, it's always. I did see one on a guy who'd stay with his wife with the children, and he was very close to her, to death. In fact, I just want to say this. This really changed my life. My dad wasn't in the picture. I think it's important though. My dad wasn't in the picture. He left. My parents split up when I was 13. My dad kind of abandoned ship, if you will, and I didn't see him for a good number of years. But my dad was. And no contact, no Christmas presents, cards, nothing. And my dad was an ex-police officer. Mm-hmm. And so I always looked up to my dad, because he was strong and he was a bit scary, But so I had this boyfriend at the time, and it was physical domestic abuse, violence, and coercive control. And it was, I was petrified, but I knew deep down I am not staying in this relationship. And I made the plan to get out of that relationship. And the first thing I did was I went and sought help from my dad, because he's an ex-police officer. And we'd had some incidents in my flat where he'd attacked me. And I thought, I've got to find my dad because of his past. So I did. I found my dad, and he said this to me, and it just, right there and then, it was the one thing. It was my turning point.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Look, I've been in the business as a police officer for years," and he said, "I'm telling you now, if you don't end this, if you don't leave this person, I'm going to this relationship. That's the end of it." I mean, I'd only just found him, so him saying that to me was, I didn't want it to. I wanted it to, start something. The bond. I wanted to get the bond back with my dad. So when he said, "This is going to end," he said, "Because I'm telling you now, I've been into situations like this. You'll get knocked to the ground, or you'll be attacked again, and as you're going down," he said, "I've seen it. You'll hit your head on the side of a coffee table, or on a worktop, or on a banister. That's it. Bang, lights out." So he said, "The reason I'm telling you this," he said, "because I don't want the next time I pick up the phone, or the next conversation I have with your mother,
to be that cool."
Yeah, to be that cool.
That's quite a stark reality, isn't it?
Yeah, and he said to me, "You've got to do this. You've got to do it now. I will help you, but you've got to listen to me."
Yeah.
And we got a police escort to come, and he used to work nights.
Yeah.
So I had a police escort just in case he turned up. I was that fearful.
Yeah.
Got a police escort to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine brought their van. I put everything from my flat into the back of that van, and I never went back to that flat. And I sold it. And that's what happened to me in that situation.
I think sometimes it just takes a word, a thought from somebody that can be that turning point. That's why it's important for people to reach out to people that care. And you did it classic in this situation. I just want to round this up, because we've kind of gone a bit over time.
Yeah.
But the real question isn't, are they a narcissist? Because this is what this episode was about. The real question is, how is this relationship affecting me? And I think we should really leave that with people to understand that. So if today's conversation has resonated with you, we'd love you to become part of the Red Flag Diaries community. We're loving this, but we're hoping that you will join us and start asking us the questions that we need to hear, so we can explore this for you guys. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you know someone who might need to hear this conversation, please like, comment and share it with them. And if there's a question you'd like to answer, a story you'd like to share, or a conversation you think more people need to hear, we'd love to hear from you. Just use the link in the description to get in touch, and with your permission, we may feature your question or story in a future episode. And of course, if you'd rather remain anonymous, that's absolutely fine, as we'll always respect your privacy. And finally, again, if anything we've talked about today has raised concerns about your situation, please don't struggle alone. We've included links to support organisations and helplines in the episode, so please look at the description. And until next time, keep trusting.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.